All right, so let me go back to share and all right, there we go. Can you see it?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. All right, so we're gonna start part 2, and we're just gonna kind of dive a little bit deeper into self-awareness and self-regulation. And we're gonna discuss a little bit about triggers and let's see, I think I have objectives here. Yeah. So a little bit, we're going to understand a little bit more about self-awareness, which I'm sure you said you kind of knew some, so it was a nice little brush up, and then understand some how to recognize triggers and understand triggers, and then build a toolbox. Oh, there's an email. Let's see, maybe somebody else joined. Oh, let's see, somebody's having an issue with the Zoom link. So let me see if I can get her the Zoom link. So on that note, let me see if I can here. So I put this here to see how it's going. Have you been able to discuss the zones of regulations with your is it your granddaughter or your daughter?
Yeah, no. Well, we adopted her, so.
Him or her?
Excuse me?
Is it him or her?
Oh, the two sisters.
Oh, two. Oh, we got
Yes.
two of them. And they're teenagers?
Well, the one is 18, and we think she knows everything, but that's typical. I did too at that age. And Sophia's 10.
Oh, okay. So 10 going on like 18 probably.
Well, as long as she stays away from her sister.
Yes, yes, yes. Keep them away. Good morning, Miss Matos. Oh, you're on mute.
I made it.
Yay! And I see you have coffee too.
Yes, I do.
I didn't have
It's the important things.
Yes, yes, definitely. Well, last week, I'm hoping you were able to watch the Zones of Regulations last week.
I did.
Oh, perfect. Yay.
Yeah.
Oh, and I have another person joining us. Yay. See, we're just a little bit late raisers, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And this is actually Miss Tudor, so our counselor from, she actually goes to Valley. So your kiddos might know her. So thank you for joining me, Miss Tudor. Good morning. I was just seeing how it was going from the last parenting, the last Zoom's parenting class. Have you been able to at least talk to your kiddos? And some of your kiddos might actually already know it. So it might be familiar terminology for them. So have you guys maybe even said like, oh, I'm maybe express yourself a little bit more, like, oh, I'm angry or I'm sad or anything like that? Any good things?
Elliot knows it, and we actually talked a little bit about the other day. He said something about anger and that it was bad. I said, well, it's not bad. I said, it's just what you do with it. Mm-hmm. Everybody gets angry. And so we had that kind of conversation.
Okay.
But he knows the zone, so.
Yes, he does very well. So that's the nice thing is when it's in the classroom and when the teachers have it, then they use it in the classroom, and then we use it in our counselor's room, and then we use it in our home hopefully soon. So what a beautiful thing when it becomes generalized and very the norm. So that's a nice thing. So how about you, Mr. Dorman? Or Al? Al, right?
Yeah. Alan, yeah. I've been doing this sort of thing with the kids ever since way before school.
Oh,
so they're familiar with that sort of thing.
Well, that's good. I'm glad
maybe not in that term specific terminology, but they know about all those different zones and so forth.
Oh, good. So that's good, because that means then when, in her, now she kind of knows it from all different environments. So that's great.
Yes. Mhm.
All right. And how about you, Miss Tudor? How are you feeling today? Blue? Oh, good. All right. So let's get
Having a
started.
great day. Thank you for asking.
Yes. I woke up this morning and I've been going to meditation class. So you can never stop learning, right? And so they've been telling me you need to look at yourself in the mirror. And I was like mortified, like, I don't want to look in the mirror. Like, no, like, she's like, but no, you need to, and talk to yourself. I'm like, that's weird. That's uncomfortable, right? So this morning I'm like, no, I'm gonna try it. So I go and I'm doing my makeup and I'm like, we're gonna have a great day today, Heather. We're gonna be energized and we're going to just, go solve some problems. And so when I was jumping on, I'm like, oh, I do feel a little bit more energized because, like I said, I'm not a morning person. I am not. And all my friends can vouch for that when they're like, no, she's not a morning person. She's always does not want to wake up in the morning. Good morning, Miss Day. Thank you for joining us. I know she's busy, so she might not say hi. Oh,
Morning.
good morning. Yeah. So today we're actually going to talk and dive a little bit more deeper into the self-awareness portion of the zones. So more of the social emotional learning piece of it. You might see it as SEL. I think they actually do SEI sometimes. But the zones actually hits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas of the different SEL components to it. But today we're actually going to just really dive into self-awareness. So we already kind of went through them where we learned about identifying the 4 zones. We learned all about that last week. And then we didn't really play bingo because I feel like that's more for like the kiddos. And then we did, actually today we're going to do a video. And today we're going to talk about creating posters or visuals within our homes. And even check-ins we're going to discuss a little bit. I think we did the zones in me last week and me in the zones last week. So you can see like it's quick where you kind of learn it, talk about it pretty quick, and you're learning a lot of lessons integrating within itself. And then we're going to talk about triggers. My favorite quote of all times from any person, that could be anybody, when they ask me, I need help, Heather. And I said, okay. But they're like, there's no triggers. I'm like, that's my favorite quote. Because I'm like, there's always a trigger. There's always an antecedent, which is what we use as terminology, the big terminology. There's always something that happens before to make us do something. That's what behavior is. So I always say, like this morning, I knew I had to wake up and I know I'm tired and I don't want to wake up. So I hit the snooze button. So I hear the alarm, that's the antecedent, the alarm, I hit the snooze button. All right, there's my behavior. Was it a good thing, a bad thing? Well, I probably could have had an extra maybe 10, 15 minutes, right? But instead I decided to sleep that extra 10, 15 minutes. So there's always something happens before a specific behavior, good or bad behavior, and I shouldn't say bad, unacceptable behavior, because what bad is to one person might not be as bad to another. So just depending on the person. So let's dive a little bit deeper into self-awareness. So I found this article that I thought was pretty neat. Kind of really just hones into what self-awareness is. So self-awareness is the thinking skill that focuses on children's ability to accurately, oh, somebody else is taking the zones.
Yeah, he is. He needs the zones.
Self-awareness is the thinking skill that focuses on a child's ability to accurately judge their own performance and behavior and to respond appropriately to different social situations. So they have to look within themselves and see what everybody's reaction is and to decide if it's appropriate. That's a lot for the little child to do. I mean, it's a lot for me to do, right? I know that I can't go into a library and scream, right? That's an environment I need to be quiet. Or I can't go to my friend, me and my friend who like to diet and eat a chocolate bar in front of her. You know, that's not appropriate because me and her like to diet, and I would trigger her, right? She's gonna want to eat it, and then I ruined her diet. So, or someone who's diabetic, you wouldn't want to eat, so just trying to find that appropriateness for different people. So not only do I have to do self-awareness for myself, I got to see how myself, what I do affects everybody else. Because let's say, I know like when my daughter comes home cranky or hangry sometimes, it affects me too, right? I'm sure when you see like your kiddos that come in from school and you could tell like on their face, like, oh, you had a bad day. And then you start feeling that energy, right? Like, oh no, like it's affecting me. How am I going to calm them down? You might get a little anxious, like, how's the rest of the night going to play out? I want to have a good night with them. So this is what self-awareness is trying to get them to recognize in themselves. And then we're going to give them hopefully some tools. We're going to learn about that later to be able to help them when they feel that. So self-awareness helps an individual to tune into their feelings as well as the behaviors and feelings of others. For example, a child successively uses self-awareness skills when they notice they are talking too loudly in the library, like I just said, where other children are trying to work, and then adjust the volume of their voice to more considerate level. So that could be even within the home, right? While you're watching TV, you don't want your child coming in there screaming or being like, mom, 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 dad, 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 I need help. Like they're gonna want to be, they're watching their favorite show, I'll wait for later. Or if it's an emergency, this is an emergency, mom, dad, or grandpa, please, I need to, using that appropriate voice value instead of being like, ah. And then self-awareness is vital to both to the child's academic success as well as their social and emotional growth. So it helps them grow to be able to look within themselves and recognize those feelings. This thinking skill facilitates a child's ability to accurately judge their own performance and behavior, as well as their ability to appropriately respond to different social situations. So it helps them be able to recognize those within themselves so they can respond appropriately to their peers or just within like people in general, right? We don't want to be out in the public and they're screaming and and then you get the people staring and then you become frustrated. So
Oh,
just
you've been
trying
to Walmart, huh? You've been to Walmart, yeah?
Yes, Walmart. I always say that to the kids. I'm like, oh, somebody's not happy. And then they're like, Mom, don't pay attention. Keep going. Because, I start analyzing everything. I'm like, keep going, Mom. We got to go shopping. We got to go. Yes, Walmart is probably one of the biggest ones. You're going to hear that. But also, I think when we look at the bigger picture, like we want to go out to family dinners, right? We want to go to Olive Garden. And we don't want to be nervous that our kiddo is going to throw a plate across the room, right? That would be inappropriate behavior. So hopefully they learn within themselves the self-awareness that, okay, this is not appropriate behavior. This is the beautiful thing about zones is what can I do to be able to get the same reaction or the same need met, but appropriately. So that's what we're trying to do as zones is teach them those appropriate coping skills. So this is what kids look like when they have good self-awareness skills. They're able to recognize the needs of their friends, so younger children around them or older children, whoever's around them. They may hold their hands while crossing the street, so they're aware of their surroundings. They have an awareness of how their behavior impacts others. So, when I start screaming, my mom gets upset. Or when I'm throwing stuff, I see that my family moves away from me and they don't want, they're starting to recognize like, oh, I'm not getting the attention I need. Or nobody wants to play with me. That's another one I heard that a lot. Like nobody wants to play with me. I'm like, well, maybe we should talk about that. Display an ability to understand and articulate their feelings. So I'll be able to say I'm angry, mad, frustrated. Use self-instruction such as first I'll do this, next I'll do that. So first then. Are able to identify what they must learn in order to complete a task successfully. So being like, okay, if I go throw the trash away, then I can watch TV for a little bit or have iPad time, or I do my chores and I can have iPad time. So being able to get a reward, and that's a whole nother training in itself, and which I'm going to hit next week, is positive reinforcement. They'll recognize the positive reinforcement. And then the last one, understand their personal strengths and weaknesses. Reflection is a beautiful thing. I know as teachers, we really reflect on ourselves, like, how did that lesson work? I know as a parent too, I'm like, what did I do to trigger my daughter? And a lot of people have a hard time with that, especially nowadays. And I grew up like that too. I grew up with like, kids were not heard unless spoken to. And so we kind of bottled up a lot of our emotions. And unfortunately, as an adult now, I have to deal with those emotions. So I feel like now my daughter's is expressing those emotions more to me. And I'm also expressing my emotions, and I'm modeling that actually our relationship has grown much more. And it's a more beautiful relationship. A lot of people might not agree with this, especially I know, like I said, like the older, I don't say like the older ways of parenting, I guess I should say. But my relationship with my daughter has grown tremendously, and less fighting. Oh, we used to fight all the time. But now that I'm understanding her emotions and showing my emotions, in which I'm reflecting off of her, my self-awareness, that I have needs too, right? We have needs too. We're humans. They think we're robots sometimes. That she's starting to see that, oh, okay, my mom, and then we're reflecting that back and forth. So that's the most beautiful thing, is being that model for not only just for zones, but for zones in general, but also for other things too, right? Like cooking and cleaning, we are their first teachers ultimately. I actually used to do a curriculum when I used to teach. I used to work for First Things First, huge birth through 5 big thing in Arizona. And I did a curriculum that was called Parents as Teachers, because parents are the first teachers of their children. So I would teach parents how to be the first teachers of their children. So that was nice to see too, like me working with them and then seeing the kids get older and how much they have progressed, because parents were really diving deep into that. So any questions or concerns about this? Okay, I needed a drink. Whew. So here is where where there is a lack of the skill. So you'll see kids that have underdeveloped skill. So it would be called like working memory. So have difficulty understanding nonverbal cues and body postures. You'll see that a lot, where they don't understand that when I'm sitting in the corner and I'm just with my hands crossed, that means I don't want to talk. And some kids don't recognize that when they don't have that self-awareness. They are unable to understand others people's perspectives. So they might be like, no, that's not right. Everybody has their own opinion, right? Are in frequent conflict with others due to misunderstanding. So they might constantly be arguing back and forth because they don't have that self-awareness of like, maybe they are right and I'm going to understand them and back off a little bit. But instead they have their opinion, and it's their opinion, and that's it. And everybody should be like that.
Yes.
And also engage in inappropriate behaviors without recognizing how they impact others. So if, like I said, if I'm screaming in the library, that means nobody's able to read a book and I sit quietly. So understanding that what I do can impact others, right? Others' feelings. So showing empathy. Have difficulty being accurate in their self-assessment. So not being able to self-reflect, like, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that, maybe I should have done this instead. Especially you'll see that in academics or athletic performance. Also within home, you'll probably see a lack of helping out with chores or maybe not as happy. And then are unlikely to double check their work. So maybe they didn't check to see if the clothes were put in correctly. I've seen it where they shove the clothes just in and then you can't shut the drawers and then they become frustrated, right? Because now they can't shut the drawer. So those are different ways that it shows that their self-awareness skills are underdeveloped. And that's where zones comes in place to help them understand those, how to understand their self-awareness. So the big one, and this one's my favorite, triggers. Okay, so like I said before, there's always an antecedent. You'll hear that a lot, antecedent, antecedent. That is just basically what happened before the behavior, you know? And then of course it goes a little bit deeper, like setting events. You can really look at like the environment, because sometimes the environment will have a contribution to some behaviors. So let's look at what a trigger is. So what is a trigger? To be triggered is to experience an emotional reaction to something based on a previous negative experience or positive too. I wish I would have put positive in there, but this is a quote, so I didn't want to change it. Triggers can be people, scents, places, harmful substances, or something else that serves as reminders for intense or distracting emotions. Often triggers are reminders that put people in a mental and emotional place of distress, pain, anger, frustration, and other strong emotions. So sometimes triggers, like I said, can be negative experiences. So if I touch the stove, ouch, that's right, a negative. I got something put on and I removed my hand, right? Or if I start screaming like at Walmart and mommy buys me the toy, guess what I'm gonna do the next time I go into Walmart? I'm going to scream because I want that toy. So that was positive experience because I was able to get that toy. So triggers are always good to look at. So another one, and I always talk about, and this one's probably the hardest one to really find, is sensory needs. And I actually did a training with teachers yesterday on this one. I said, I actually encountered the first child that I was like, I might need some backup on this one. So I was like, I have a theory, but you never want to go on theories, right? You want hardcore data. And so I had to pull in an expert on this one. And I was going in the right direction, but I just needed some confirmation on that I was doing it right, because I don't want to be wrong. So sensory needs are definitely one of the hardest to figure out. So, for example, if you are watching TV and your kiddo is playing, you're like, oh, but they were playing, and then all of a sudden they just went, ah, and started screaming. Okay, so we're looking at him like, okay, well, he was just sitting and playing. Well, maybe on the TV, that's how the volume goes up and down, up and down, up and down. Maybe at that moment, that volume went up, and then so did their sensory processing, right? So it heightened them, and so that was the scream to be able to handle all that input. So sensory is the biggest one, but like I said, that's a whole nother training in itself. Sensory, it's a beautiful thing, and OT would be a great person maybe to invite if we want to dive deeper into that, and I'm sure she'd be willing to come in. So let's continue on. Any questions before I move on? All right, you guys are a great audience. So let's look at the bigger picture. Okay, so zones, triggers. Triggers are things or thoughts that move you in and out of the green zone. So whatever triggers you might make you go into blue zone, or it might make you go into red zone, or even green zone, right? If I eat a candy, gets me a little hyper, it gets me into that yellow zone. And then when you are aware of your triggers, you can learn to use the tools and strategies to control them. So that's what we're gonna do today, actually, is talk about some tools in a little bit of what we can do to get from all the different zones. So, and I know you guys don't have where you can write on it, but let's talk about, can you think of 3 triggers that make you kind of either go into the blue zone or the yellow zone or the red zone? I'll start off. One trigger I have is dirty dishes. It makes me bananas. I always tell my kids, you are going to have cockroaches. And if those cockroaches come, I'm putting them in your bed. And they're like, no, 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 no. We'll go. I would never really do that. But I do not like dirty dishes. Another one, and it's probably because we have the puppy and it's a reminder. So look at bad experience, right? So I got a trigger from a bad experience from before. I hate the smell of dog pee. Hate it. And so there I am. I even like mop every night and they're like, Mom, you're going crazy. I'm like, I can't handle dog pee. It's a trigger of mine. And so luckily I have a good friend, Megan Springer, and I think you know who she is, Miss
Melissa is fine.
Oh, Melissa, thank you.
Yeah.
She showed me this amazing pee spray, and
Yes.
it takes that pee away so fast. I was like,
Mhm.
I could go and kiss you right now. You don't understand. That was a bad trigger of mine.
Mhm.
The next trigger would probably be, what did I say? I think yesterday I did. Gosh, I have like so many. Probably dirty clothes. I can't have dirty clothes either sitting. But I'm a clean freak, so it's just me. But anybody else want to share their triggers?
Yeah. Mine is not responding when you need to. Sometimes they're watching TV or playing with their phone, and you need them to do something, like take your dirty clothes into the laundry room, so they don't pile up. And next thing you know, you don't have any clothes because you didn't take them in there. Or I need the dishes washed, or I need the carpet vacuumed, and they don't do it. They would rather do what they want to do instead, and that flips me out, because I see it as a responsibility, and we all have our responsibilities. And I talk to them about it till I'm blue in the face, and there's never any change. It's always, well, I'm busy right now, or I'll do it later, or no, I ask you to do it now to get it out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, to me, that goes along with being orderly, or knowing what is a priority.
Yes.
And that it's all mixed in there. So it just drives me up the wall.
Yes. Is it it's like the one when they're like, why are you yelling at me, Mom? And I'm like, I said it 3 times nicely, 3 times. And
That's what I say. If you would have done it the first time, I would not be yelling.
no, that and honestly, that in itself is being reinforced, right? So I say it nicely, I say it nicely, I say it nicely, and then I yell. And now the only time now that they're gonna answer to me,
Yes.
I yell no. So I'm like, oh no, I created a monster. So now I have to just be like, well, that's a whole nother training. I don't want to go deep.
Right.
So I have actually learned, I was reading this book a while back. It's called The Child Whisperer, and it's about the 4 different types of children. And of course, I learned which one I was and why. So I found why some things trigger me, because that's not who I am as a person. So I've noticed it. And the one thing I can think of right offhand, which I know this doesn't sound weird to the parents in here because I'm a teacher, but having to repeat myself more than once. Like
Oh, yeah.
knowing I gave very specific details, it's up on the board, and then turning around and they look at me and they're like, what? what did you just say? And I go, are you really? Are you kidding me? But that's also, I'm that serious child, and according to the child whisperer. And so we don't like to repeat ourselves because then we feel like we're not being heard or understood or validated in that sense. So knowing that, like knowing to be true to myself, but that could be a trigger because of some kids, whatever their child whisper type is, they need it more than once, or the processing and everything else. So I've actually learned how to just kind of wait and take those deep breaths and say, okay, like I'll just find 5 other ways in my head to start saying it differently. So to me, it's not saying it the same way because I'm going to repeat it 5 different ways. But yeah, having to do that. Sometimes I think now with adults, I can't handle it. It's like, really, I just like, how was that hard? I just said very detailed what this was, but so that's my trigger.
That's a
Yeah,
good trigger.
that gets me too, where I have to repeat myself. And what that tells me is that either the person doesn't want to follow directions or they're not able to follow directions.
Mhm.
And sometimes I have to go back, and instead of repeating what I just said, I'll ask them questions. Were you listening? And try and get them to talk a little bit, and then listen to what they have to say. Were you paying attention? No. Why were you not paying attention when I was talking to you? Do you think I just talked to hear myself? Well, sometimes I do, but and I never yell. I only yell once in a great while, and when I do raise my voice, then ears perk up, eyes look, and because I learned a long time ago that if you yell all the time, they're not going to pay any attention to that. You have to find another means of getting your message across.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. How about you, Miss Melissa? Or Mrs. I'm sorry.
I have a lot of the same triggers. I think it's the not being listened to, having to repeat myself. Sometimes I find with adults, it's when you've asked them to do something or they have a job to do, like dealing with businesses and they don't do it. It's like, that's your job. How do you not do it? Like, if you're going to say you're going to do it. And that's one of mine.
Mm-hmm. And then now generation, it feels like nobody wants to work, especially with COVID. Oh my gosh, it's been so bad.
Yeah. And it's just very, that's my trigger. A lot of it too is like the cleaning stuff, because I am a neat freak, and it's like, how does that not bother you?
Me too. My kids get so mad at me because I have a cleaning lady that comes every other week because that's how bad I am. And they're like, we're cleaning right before the cleaning lady comes. I'm like, absolutely. One, it's a skill set. I want them to continue on,
Right.
But also I'm like, I don't want embarrassing stuff floating around, Just please clean for me. Once in a while, I'll be like, let it slide. I'll be like, I will be okay. But I mean, it's hard for me not to. And it's a routine too. It's a routine. Every Sunday we clean. It's a routine.
Right.
So, all right.
Yep.
So let's look at this video. It's super funny. I love it.
Oh no. What is that? That is Sheldon's I'm unhappy and about to destroy the planet music. Let's just go to your place.
Well, wait, if he's unhappy, shouldn't we talk to him?
Shouldn't we talk to him? Have you learned nothing in 6 years?
You doing okay, sweetie?
There's ominous music playing and there's an Afghan over my head. I don't know where you're from, but where I'm from, that means I'm not doing okay.
Want me to make you some tea?
And tea is for when I'm upset. I'm not upset. The university's forcing me to work with Kripke. I'm outraged.
So, Coco?
Yes, Coco. Do you have any idea what it's like to be paired with someone who's so incredibly annoying?
Oh, teacher, me.
great work, and now he's gonna come along and ruin it. I'm angrier than ever and filled with despair.
What beverage do you make for that?
Oh, no, I know this. Hot apple cider with cinnamon stick?
Yes, I'll have a cider with cinnamon sticks.
Okay, so I like showing that because one, you see self-awareness, right? He's telling them like, "Look, don't you hear the music? Don't you hear, like, I don't like it. Or there's something going on. I'm angry. I'm, upset." And then I also like to show it too because it shows his trigger, right? He doesn't want to work with this person. He doesn't want to do it. I mean, but he has to, right? For work. And then the third one is the tools, right? There's different drinks for different ways he's upset, right? He wants hot cocoa for being his anger and upset. And then the other one was hot apple cider with cinnamon stick. So there was different tools for different emotions, so to speak. So I thought that was very funny and a good way to show visually, because I am a visual learner, what exactly it looks like. So on that note, let's look at some strategies for big emotions, right? I say this, I used to go to trainings and I'd be like, I want to see what you do when there's a kid throwing a chair around. Like, what do I do? And I always went to trainings and they're like, here's the kid. He's getting really upset. I'm like, here comes the chair, right? It's gonna get thrown. And then it skips right over that and goes right into like, oh, now he's eating a cookie and he's doing so good. I'm like, well, what happened in between? So I like to share a lot of the strategies because they didn't really share those kind of strategies. And then over the time, I've learned from different avenues of how exactly to work with kiddos with these different needs. There's different needs. So, and the bigger picture, to be honest, and again, probably a whole nother training, is when behaviors happen, it's usually to communicate something. And so to be able to help that behavior, it's not going to go away. What we're trying to do is do a replacement behavior. So if I want attention from mom, I'm not going to scream. Instead, I'm going to give mom a special card that says, I need your attention. And then that would be a replacement behavior. So that's where, that's the bigger picture. But I just want to kind of go over some quick strategies for those bigger emotions. So for example, we have blue zone. So maybe overly crying. Maybe they're crying for mom or dad, or dad went to work, or grandma's away, or grandpa's away on a trip for work, and they might be crying and upset. So maybe having a picture that they carry around with them. That way the mom or dad or grandpa or grandma can kiss it before they leave. And then every time they miss them, they kiss it. Or it could even be simple as like, I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Kissing Hand. The mom kisses the little boy, her son, in the paw, and says, okay, now hold my kiss. And whenever you need it, kiss it. That is for a much younger child, but you can see overall the picture of it's more of like that thought that I'm still here, even though I'm not here. And that's where we get a lot of the crying, right? It's because either they're missing somebody, and the hardest one too is when you have a death in the family. You're going to get lots of blue zone type of emotions. And that's probably a really hard one to do. There's a great book called, I think it's called The Heartstring, where it talks about like how you're connected with an invisible string to heaven, and that they're always there with you with that string connected. It's a really nice book. I've used it with several kiddos. Another one is to draw pictures. I know I have a lot of artists that like to draw pictures, and that's how they express themselves through the art. They might draw a sad picture. Some parents get really scared when they're drawing like killing pictures, but that might just be the way they're expressing anger. So there might be blood in there, and sometimes, and I wish Alba was here so I could ask her a little bit more questions about it. But I know, like in my past, I usually would discuss those feelings with them a little bit deeper, and then it clicks a little bit more. Like for example, I had a kiddo that had drew a castle, and his mom was in the top of the castle, but she was falling, and the dragon was coming to blow fire on her. And I said, "Oh, the dragon is coming to save her, right?" He's like, "No, he's coming to burn fire on her." And I'm like, "Oh wow, like that's pretty intense, right?" And I said, "Well, what happens if your mommy gets the fire and never comes home to you? How would that make you feel?" And he was like, "Oh yeah." I said, "Who's gonna make your breakfast? Who's going to fold your clothes? Who's gonna give you a kiss at night?" And I think sometimes they draw those bigger expressions because they don't quite understand what it means. So they're trying to express themselves, but they need help understanding their feelings, right? And he's like, "No, I don't want that." And so he kind of erased the fire, and he's like, "No, the dragon's coming to save my mom." I said, "Oh, I think that's a better idea because we need our mommies." And so he was, was able to get out of that anger into more of a smiling because, he thought of his mom. So that was a good way of coping skill. Another one is listening to calm music. I love listening to rain when I fall asleep. So just bringing it down a notch, seeing if they want to listen to special music. Definitely not too hyper, right? You want more calm. There's great apps for that too. There's the Calm Music app. There's actually an app that has a pet. You remember those nano pets back in the day where everybody was using them, and then, oh my God, my pet's dead. But there's one that you actually it helps you with emotions. You actually play with the pet and you go slow. But if you go too hard like this, it gets upset. It gets all angry, and it's like, but instead you do slow, and it plays soft music, and so it's kind of like a distraction. You hear the music, and you're taking care of a pet, which is actually a soft-emotional pet. Now, my favorite one actually, and I found this over Christmas break, it's actually a social emotional interactive, is it EI? I'm probably saying this wrong. EI robot, or is it IA? Artificial intelligence, so IA robot. It literally recognizes your child's voice and starts talking to you, your child, sorry, not it, talking to your child, and it tells it like, "Come on, let's take deep breaths." And then you can ask like, "How are you doing today?" And it tells them how they're doing. And I thought it was pretty neat, pretty expensive. I was tempted to buy it until I saw the price. It was like $500. I'll have to wait a little bit. Plus, I don't have younger kids, so what am I going to do with that robot running around? But I thought it was really, really interesting robot. It said it helps with the social emotional skills, social interaction. So I thought it was a pretty neat robot. The next one is the yellow zone. This one's more of like an overly hyper or maybe scared. So also looking at those sensory needs, and I kind of tapped into that last time, what we were talking about is using the different sensory activities. So if they're hyper, let them go for a run. I had a kid that liked to run. I wish I had that energy, so maybe I'd be a little bit thinner and fit, but he would ask me to go for a run. So I was like, "Sure." And I'm like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" He's like, "Yeah, I need to run." And so he would run 2 laps, like several times. I was like, wow, he's gonna be a track star one day. And actually, when he grew up, he became a really good soccer player because he can run and he doesn't stop. Maybe another sensory need might be as simple as squishing a ball when they're angry, putting something in their hand and squishing. And sometimes, like, I actually got this question like from somebody, I can't remember who it was, but they're like, "Have you ever heard of kids using a coping skill of going like this?" And because the teacher's scared that they're going to punch, I said, "Well, wouldn't that be the same as having a squishy ball? Like you're going to squeeze it and it gives you that sensory need, right?" She's like, "Oh, I didn't think of it like that." So like squishing is also like, the ball in your hand is also another great sensory. But like I said, sensory can be a whole nother avenue of a training, but those are just a few things. And the last one is the red zone. So screaming, hitting, throwing. The first thing in the beautiful thing, honestly, is that you guys have that intense relationship with your child. So the first thing is de-escalating. You don't want to add to it by yelling or screaming, but staying calm, because you're going to portray that energy into your child, right? I'm calm. I'm still here. I understand you have big emotions right now, when you're ready, then come, let's talk this out. And honestly, sometimes I don't even talk. I let them talk. I let my daughter talk and I just listen. Sometimes they just need to be heard, and they might have some great things that need to be said. So that's the nice thing about the relationship you guys already have with your children, is that, oh, they can come to me. And what a beautiful thing too is building that relationship of trust with them. Because then let me tell you, because I think you guys have 10-year-olds. I don't know how old Elliot is, but how old is he?
He'll be 9 next week.
Oh, so perfect. So when they become teenagers and when serious things are going to hit, they're going to feel safe coming to you with non-judgment. So that was the nice thing about me and my daughter. And even my son now comes at 21 and I'm like, some things I don't even want to hear. I'm like, oh my God. But we have that open communication where they know I'm not going to judge them. I'm going to help pick them up. I'm going to help them see eye to eye, like, oh, I understand what you're saying, but how about we try this? Or, well, go try that. Tell me how that works out. When I'm thinking like, that's not really good, like I've done that before and that's not going to work. But like having that relationship is a beautiful thing, especially when they grow up. You're going to really want.
I've always learned that trying to take it down to the next level will calm things down.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's difficult because you will be striking emotions of your own in the process. And you have to really keep those under control and act as if those emotions are not there. But once you can get it down a notch or two, then you can. I always ask questions because I want to understand exactly what it is that they're feeling or they're saying or trying, the message they're trying to give me. So I ask questions and then I listen. And that gets them to talk too. And by talking, they generally feel a little bit better and discover, oh, it's not such a big deal after all. And that problem usually will subside and dissipate.
Yes. And then again, we go back to the replacement behaviors too. So once you understand what they need, then you can show them this is what you can do instead of A or B or whatever it is they need. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. But yes, and I'm so glad. And you have one lucky grandkids that have such an understanding grandpa. So let's get into the good part, building a toolbox with your family.
I have to leave you now. I have to take Sophia to school.
Oh, okay.
So
Actually, you know what? We can actually stop here. And then next time we can go here because we have a lot more to go. So I didn't know how long this would take. So yes, go ahead and go do what you need to do. And we'll actually start here and I'll add a little bit more for next time. And I just noticed the time too. I was like, oh no, I have to go to work too.
Okay, well, thank you. And everybody else, thank you for sharing. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming and have a great, wonderful weekend.
Okay, you too.
All right, bye.
Enjoy your training day.
Yes, thank you.